This program was first broadcast on Canterbury's community access radio station Plains FM 96.9 and was made with the assistance of New Zealand On Air.
It's time for Emergence News on Plains FM 96.9, citizen-made radio.
Hello and welcome to Emergence News, coming to you from Plains FM Christchurch. With me today in the studio are Nigel and John.
Good afternoon, Peter.
Hi there.
Hello, Peter. Hello, Nigel.
Hi. We are here talking about the emergence of Maitreya and his disciples, the Masters of Wisdom. They are our elder brothers who have gone on before us and mastered the world lessons that are needed to progress. And we're all heading for that same process, somewhat laggard.
Are we heading for the same destination?
I'm fairly sure you guys will get there ahead of me, but never mind.
Okay, so guys, Nigel, what are you doing?
He's on about the point of evolution again.
Yeah.
I just feel tiny around you people.
Oh, I do?
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. What am I doing today?
Yes.
Nigel, you're getting paid big money for this, mate.
Yeah, I know.
It's a
I'm talking
highlighter.
Good news.
Is there enough pink there?
Our title is Good News from the Share International.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've dived into the September 2020 issue, Peter, and I'm going to look at an article titled Principles of Economic Sharing, and to put a really tasty trailer on this.
Yeah.
There's one, we're looking at the beginning of the article, looks at a Piscean viewpoint of economic sharing, which is the old fair compensation, value, effort and reward system versus the Aquarian perspective, which is meeting the needs of the population and more of a collective responsibility.
Right, okay. Good one.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And John, what have you got lined up for us?
To quote my friend Nigel, I've dived into the July-August Share International looking for some good news, and I found a title that scared me a little bit, Awakening to Responsibility. And responsibility is a word that I struggle with throughout my entire adult life, but this is an interesting compilation which I will be feeding you.
But your whole job is about responsibility, isn't it? You know, that's what you do for a living.
Way too much.
Yeah.
Yes, we've had to drag him away this afternoon so we could get him live on air this afternoon.
In the studio with the boys.
That's right. Hey, look, just before we come back to you, Peter, because the theme is good news on this program, I couldn't help but want to seek your opinion on a story that's come through this week. And the Pope announcing his endorsement of gay civil union marriage. Now, this is the Catholic Church. This is the biggest, most conservative Christian church on the planet. That's it. You know, you're a former religious studies student, John, at university. What do you make of this? Did you see this in your lifetime?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think this Pope has been, in fact, when I look at some of the things he said, I'm surprised he ever got elected. But he's said some really progressive and peacemaking type statements. And, you know, Krem has said a while ago that he's working closely with the Master Jesus, and you can see this in the things he's coming out with. And that quote is, everybody's a child of God, is just the truth. It's the truth we need to hear right now. It's the truth we need to hear in every country on this planet. Everybody's a child of God.
Yeah, and we need to get rid of war and hatred.
Yes.
And replace it with love. And yes, I love the positive attitude of this, of the United Nations, actually. I see that they're 75 years this year. They've just celebrated their birthday of 75 years on. And the positive attitude of the World Food Programme Director, David Beasley, that in spite of the world facing multiple famines of biblical proportions because of the COVID pandemic, he says that with our expertise and partnerships, we can bring together the teams and programs necessary to make certain the COVID-19 does not become a human and food crisis catastrophe. So, I mean, that's a really positive attitude. They must be absolutely inundated with things they've got to do. You know, so much more food required, so much more all sorts of things that are needed, the infrastructure and the trucks to take it to the right people and that sort of thing.
Must be overwhelming.
You know, it is absolutely overwhelming.
I couldn't imagine working for the UN and attending some of those meetings. And the elephant in the room constantly would be money and resource and misery.
Yeah.
And how do we overcome it?
That's right.
You know, and then down the corridor, you've got the Security Council vetoing everything. That,
we don't like it. No, we don't like it. We want to sell more bombs.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
And of course, the World Health Organization, which is also part of the UN, is trying to hold on to the vision of the highest attainable standard of health for all people of all countries. Although a challenging but attainable vision, it has a lot of work to do, as half the world's population of 7.8 billion cannot access essential health services because they cannot afford or due to a shortage of doctors, where it depends on where they live, obviously. And this is where the World Health Organization shines in global communities, offering free tests, medications, vaccines in nearly every corner of the world. And Philip Elson, United Nations poverty expert, said that the most vulnerable people have been neglected during this crisis, which forces them to work in unsafe conditions, putting everyone's health at risk. So this is a great opportunity for countries like ours to increase support for the United Nations and its work, particularly since the USA has stopped supporting it. And also, I love the letters actually from...
So they've stopped supporting the UN, they've stopped supporting the World Health Organization.
Yes.
It's quite an administration over there at the moment, isn't it?
Yes, so actually it'd be interesting to see...
Because they must be the biggest donors historically.
In, whether they actually reinstate that program, because I don't think the Democrats against the World Health Organization at all. I haven't heard that, have you?
No, but that whole election that's going ahead in the States, it's going to have ramifications for everybody, but it's so hard to pick at the moment. And I don't believe that Joe Biden is holding a torch high above his head, leading the people to the promised land. But yeah, there's so much going on in the States, and it's such a complicated picture that it's difficult to pick at this stage. Whoever wins the election, just what direction that country will go. Yeah. Certainly the voice of the people is not being heard or listened to. Certainly being heard. It's loud enough, but it's not being listened to at this stage.
But I do think the countries of the world can actually step up and increase their donations. Well, you know, actually it's more than just a donation, isn't it? It's part of our humanity to support the United Nations programs, I think. And I do feel that, I mean, New Zealand they've been able to dish out billions of dollars over this COVID thing. And I'm sure that we could increase our share 10% or whatever. I'm not even sure what we do give, but and I imagine if every other country around the place did the same, we'd pick up the slack. And they're going to need a lot more money, the United Nations, just to look after people that are...
They need somebody in the UN to start coordinating. Okay, excess resources, New Zealand, Australia, and just go around all the member nations.
Which is the model that Maitreya has.
Yeah, Maitreya says
it just needs a bit of coordination, because there will be plenty of countries like ours that'll put their hand up and want to contribute.
And you know, honestly, I don't think we're too far away from that. I think that public opinion is changing. I think that people's heart are more open to what's happening on the planet and how it can be resolved.
That's right.
I'm actually a little bit more positive about what's going on now than I have been for a while. I think that through the turmoil, we're seeing a shift.
Yeah, great.
You know, there's that fabulous esoteric quote that great change is preceded by crisis.
Right.
And we're in crisis at the moment, and people are trying new ways to get out of it.
And it does bring out the best in people.
Yeah. It does.
And I just wanted to talk about another couple of items actually from Share International, And one was called Compelling Presence. It's a letter to the editor. I was walking in my hometown of Montreal on Mont Royal Street, a big commercial avenue, with a close friend at my side in 2005. All of a sudden, I felt compelled to turn my head without knowing why, and I saw on the other side of the road a handsome man, very tall, dressed like a man from India, with a white, brown and black tunic and his head wrapped in a black turban. A powerful radiance emanated from him. I told my friend to look around to see for himself how beautiful this man was. At that precise moment, the man glanced at us and waved. Who was he? And Benjamin Creme replied through his master, confirmed that the man was Maitreya. So he does appear to people all around the world. There's no question about that.
In different guises.
Yes, so sometimes I've seen a photograph of him as Father Christmas. So yes, he does. He does. But people sense this incredible presence, and this is, this is absolutely fantastic.
You can be spiritual and have a sense of humour, can't you, John?
Apparently so.
Yeah. With Maitreya, we can.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Okay, John. Now you've got carry on.
Ball's in my hand. I'm running with it.
You run. With
Okay. As I said earlier, Share International, July, August, and I was saying to the lads off air, a little bit of professional jargon there, lads off air, that this Share International magazine is, every time I go into it, I just get really excited. I have certain real limitations around my personality, and one of the things I enjoy about Creme's writing and Share International is it gives you little snippets of information. So if you're a shallow, easily distracted reader like I am, you can get into the books. Creme's writing style is just snapshot of ideas. You can get into his books or you can get into Share International and just get little snippets of gossip or kind of inspiring stuff. So anyway, I went to a compilation called Awakening to Responsibility. Not a word I personally enjoy, I'd have to say. But listen to it.
But it caught your eye.
But it caught my eye because it's a snapshot of little ideas. Here's what he says. Now, this was written back in Maitreya's Mission, Volume 2. And that was written a long time ago, Peter, and I'm looking to you as the eldest one here and the historian.
I would say it's 30 years ago, John.
Volume 2. Listen to this, guys. The voice of the people is already beginning to be heard, and this representative form of government will replace control of the masses through ideology. Everything is moving so fast now that events are beyond the control of the politicians. A new political era has begun. Awareness awakens people to their basic human rights, their liberties and their responsibilities to themselves and others. Now, when I read that, I thought, man, this is written just recently. This representative form of government, so the voice of the people, will replace control of the masses through ideology. And that is what the political machine generates now, is ideology. And when we look at the US of A, their debate is around ideology, not facts and figures, but ideology. We just had an election here in New Zealand, and I'm wondering if it was an ideological victory by Jacinda Ardern's government. Or a personality. I'm just wondering, because that idea of controlling people through ideology is still really strong and really prevalent. However, Benjamin Creme is saying 30 years ago that this is coming to an end. He goes on to say, on all sides there is evidence that the old order is crumbling. Clearly that is happening. Ancient hatreds divide the peoples and lawlessness abounds, but everywhere there are signs of a new spirit, a new sense of responsibility and a renewed reverence for life in all its forms. And we are seeing that daily in social media. We're seeing it daily in the youth voice coming through. We're seeing it daily in this voice for change coming through. We're seeing it in Britain. We're seeing it in the USA. We're seeing it right across the world. People are in the streets. He goes on to say, and this is from Benjamin Creme through the Master, Sharing for Peace, when the world's goods are shared more equitably, half of man's problems will vanish overnight. little snapshot of gossip there.
Yeah.
Already there are indications that many realise this, and the call for sharing is rising on every hand. The wise foresee the need for sharing as the only basis of lasting peace. And heroes of the young lend to their popular voice. Once again, guys, when the world's goods are shared, half of man's problems will disappear overnight.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's an amazing statement, because, we don't realise how locked into this dog-eat-dog system.
Commercial model.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We stockpile food to keep the market price high and don't release it to people that are dying of hunger.
And there are people hungry.
Absolutely. On a planet that produces enough food. So a lovely little snapshot, and this is one of the things I love about the way the masters talk. Another one, our prime task now is to look after the environment. This will become the responsibility of every individual, politician, guru, saint and scientist. Our energies will be spent in making it healthy again. When that happens, there will be less suffering, disease and poverty. Now that's the laws of life. Maitreya's teachings, the laws of life.
Great book.
And how long ago was that written? 10 years?
Yes,
or more.
probably would be.
Okay. So topical. Our energies will be spent in making it healthy again. When that happens, there'll be less suffering, disease and poverty. We are getting the diseases because of the way we've mismanaged our planetary home. I was talking to a friend of mine recently trying to explain my thoughts on why we're getting these noroviruses coming out of the animal kingdom. And I said to this friend, you keep a very clean and tidy house. And you go into her home and everything's in its place. It's tidy, it's well kept, it's hygienic. And I said to her, if you stopped cleaning your house and left it long enough and didn't clean up food and left it, it would eventually become dirty. And then it would go from dirty to being unhygienic. And the food would start to rot, and the things that you hadn't cleaned up would attract bugs and all sorts of things, flies. And all of a sudden your home would become unhealthy for you.
Yeah.
And we've all seen the documentaries where people in white suits and masks have gone into these homes to clean them out and to rescue people from them. So if we didn't look after our houses, they would become toxic to us. Our planetary home, which we have not looked after, has become toxic to us.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
You can see that. It's a good way of...
It's a good analogy, isn't it?
Analogy, isn't it? A good way of putting it forward.
A good housekeeper keeps their house clean and hygienic and safe, and so does a good planetary culture. Keep their planet safe and healthy.
Because we're meant to be the caretakers.
We're meant to be the caretakers. I like the term farmers when they husband the land and they husband the livestock. We have that responsibility to the planet. So once again, there's some great snippets of ideas coming out of the Share International magazine. So topical. Maitreya's Mission Volume 1, written a long, long time ago.
We're talking back in the 80s, aren't we?
Right. Voting, this is Benjamin Cream, gives you enormous power. You can use that power in different ways. You can just go along mechanically and vote the way your mother and father voted, or your friends vote, or you can vote the way that you really want to vote. That has a crucial effect on the life of this country. Everybody living in the United States is responsible for the present administration of the United States, just as everyone in Britain is responsible for the present administration in Britain, in France or West Germany or wherever you happen to live. Wherever you have that right to vote, you have responsibility. You are responsible for the activity of your country at home and abroad. Now, I found that really uplifting because we've just gone through an election here where it seems to me people voted responsibly. And I think people in New Zealand voted with an eye to community.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, they weren't thinking so much of themselves.
Jacinda,
they rejected the tax cuts.
Yes.
It wasn't great to have an election where we weren't talking about tax cuts all the time.
I'm going to give you 20 more bucks a week in your pay. Please vote for me. And we've fallen for it for generation after generation.
But it was interesting because early in the campaign, National gave that a go, but they dropped it.
Yeah.
Because they
got
realised...
slapped.
Yes.
Yeah. What we voted for was Jacinda Ardern's approach to kindness and her leadership style. Now, I guess I'm a bit concerned that could be personality and it could be ideology, but also people changed their voting stripe for this election, and we know that because of the windfall, right, that went one way. Really exciting stuff, because Benjamin Creme was writing about this 20 and 30 years ago.
As relevant as ever.
Predicting it, and it's coming to pass. So I'm finding the Share International magazine really, really exciting stuff.
This is the Emergence News on Plains FM. For more information, go to shareinternational.org.
Okay, Nigel, your turn now.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. Well, my job today is to find a good news story out of Share International issue September 2020, Principles of Economic Sharing. This is by a guy based in Paris, Sébastien Villemot.
Ooh, nice.
Not too bad, the pronunciation.
Fifth form French coming through there, Nigel.
Third form for about 2 months and he quit. Now, he says, Sébastien says, sharing is the key to solving the problems that confront humanity today. And that's exactly what you're talking about, John. Only through sharing can economic justice be achieved. But what exactly do we mean by economic justice? So we're going to have a look at some of the concrete principles that should govern the sharing of resources. So the writer refers to the principle inscribed in the French Declaration of Rights of Man and of the Citizen of 1789, which states in its first article that social distinctions can be founded only on the common good. It is the very opposite of exploitation, which corresponds to a situation where some get less than what they contribute because others in position of power unduly appropriate the fruits of their efforts. Now, that's since 1789. So,
you're joking.
Now, we've had Benjamin Creme, we've had Alice Bailey talking about the new seventh ray energy, Aquarian energy, coming in the 1600s and the 1700s, and that's a clear example of the French. The French were onto it.
It's the French Revolution.
Almost. So let's have a look at some of the principles, the old principles of sharing. The dominant view, especially among economists, is that what matters is one's productivity. For example, one's ability to create economic value. Economic valuations are mainly driven by market forces in the current system. This vision tends to be conservative. One could, however, argue that market values are distorted in the sense that they do not faithfully reflect the social usefulness of activities. For example, in the lockdown here in New Zealand and here in Christchurch, I remember while we were locked down, we still had essential services, didn't we? So we had people doing jobs that were traditionally unacknowledged.
Yes.
Taxi drivers, checkout operators in the supermarkets.
Supermarket packers, street cleaners, rubbish bin emptiers.
All the people, all those services that we absolutely, they became vital, didn't they?
Yes.
They became essential. But the question is, were they justly rewarded for their efforts, especially when they were working long days? And I know some supermarket workers were telling me they were working 9 days straight, and that's tough when you're working long hours.
Yeah.
Another interpretation of the principle of fair compensation is one that one should receive according to one's social usefulness, according to one's ability to create use value rather than market value. And then a third way of looking at compensation is the interpretation of the principle of fair compensation, is that resources should be distributed according to effort, being defined as personal sacrifice or inconvenience incurred in performing one's economic duties.
Wow, that is a fabulous idea.
So, despite these three different principles of fair compensation, they all provide a criteria for determining how just is the given economic system. If the system is deemed unfair, the logical implication is that it should be transformed to achieve a distribution of resources closer to the fairness principle. This redistribution can be considered as an act of sharing. But I ask you, doesn't sharing actually mean more than that? Isn't sharing also about our collective responsibility towards each other?
Yeah, and that's exactly right. I mean, we need to be looking after people that perhaps don't have any arms, that can't do anything productive, perhaps.
Well, this is it, Peter. It's the principle of need. The idea that everybody should receive according to their needs.
Yes, I agree.
And this includes the needs, and they can vary from individual to individual. You know, if you're looking at disabilities or accidents, they should be compensated for. But we're also talking about universal basic needs. We're talking about housing, education, food, healthcare, even clothing and transportation. Now we're talking more in the 20th century when we're looking at the Article 22 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of 1948. So we're getting a bit closer to Maitreya's arrival. Well, in fact, yes, 1945 was when
he announced.
When he announced, you know, and the UN was established, wasn't it? So this principle of need is a higher and, let's say, a more perfect expression of the idea of sharing. Another reason why the emphasis should be today put on needs is the ecological crisis. It's clear, at least in affluent nations, some of the affluent nations perhaps in the West, where we have collectively rethought about our consumption patterns. We need to rethink these consumption patterns and draw a line between what is really needed for purposeful living and what is superfluous and what should be discarded. Mm-hmm. So how does our current economic system measure up to these standards? Well, according to this writer, he says it blatantly violates the principle of needs. Hundreds of millions do not have enough food to eat, not to speak of other basic needs. So to finish, let's quickly look through history to today. The heart of the intellectual endeavour of Karl Marx was precisely to show that capital owners, because of their position of power, were able to seize a value that has been produced by others.
Yes.
More recently, feminists have highlighted the fact that women are paid less than men for identical skills and job contents, not to speak of unpaid domestic work. In the field of international relations, the dependency theory has shown how poor countries are subject to an unequal exchange in their trade with wealthier ones. So, a significant transformation of our economic system is in order if we are to realise the principle of sharing. I'll leave you with Alice Bailey. Listen to this.
Please do.
Came across this morning. The principle of conflict is active in all institutions, groups and organisations in all lands and in every department of human thought. Its results are twofold. 1, the awakening of humanity, and 2, a basic renunciation once the issues are clearly seen. And the cleavage which exists in reality between the desirable spiritual values and the undesirable material values.
All this information can be found on the Share International website, www.share-international.org. Scorpio Books in Christchurch carries the magazine and some books. And also don't forget the podcasts, which are available on the Plains FM website.
We welcome your comments, questions and feedback. Please contact us at emergencenews@gmail.com.
The opportunity to join our transmission is available Monday and Wednesday evenings and Thursday mornings, which gives us the possibility to do a service meditation in conjunction with Masters.